What's up, guys? Pretty excited about this one, if nothing but for the clickbait. So I got tagged in something on Facebook about getting lean and abs without doing cardio. So the questions are: can you lose body fat without doing cardio? Yes. Can you lose body fat only doing cardio? Sure. Can you lose body fat without any exercise at all and only focusing on diet? Yeah, absolutely. So those questions are extremely limited though and out of context. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So there are three types of cardio that I kind of want to mention. There's low intensity steady state, moderate intensity steady state, and then high intensity interval training. And there's other types of cardio that fall into that, but those are the three main categories I just kind of want to touch on today. So low intensity steady state. Basically, that is just a repetitive motion at an intensity that you can do for an extended period of time. There are there's three energy systems. You've got your phosphocreatine system, and then your glycogen, and then your oxidative. And basically, in that order, the longer the bout of exercise, it goes from one to the other, and it's never just one. They blend together. All right, so that's as far as I'm going to go with that. But the low intensity steady state, the philosophy behind doing that, whether it's exclusively or just as part of a program, is that it burns a higher percentage of fat per calories burned, and that is true. That is absolutely true, but that is very incomplete. So basically, what that's saying is, if you burn 500 calories, you'll burn, say if you burn 50% of that, then you're looking at like 250 calories. All right, so if you burn 500 calories doing high intensity training, then you may burn 100 of those in fat. Now, that's an incomplete story as well. So higher intensity training is actually you actually burn more calories in total at a lower percentage of fat. So say if you do 30 minutes of high intensity versus 30 minutes of low intensity, you might burn 500 calories of in that low intensity bout, and say it is 50%. So you're looking at 250 calories. Well, okay, so that's great. But say in the same amount of time, you burn 1,000 calories doing high intensity training. Now, only 30% of that could come from fat, and these are arbitrary percentages. I'm not, it depends on the person, and there's all kinds of factors. But just for the simple math's sake, so the same amount of time you do a high intensity bout and you burn 1,000 calories. Well, instead of that 50% coming from fat, you may only burn 30% coming from fat. Now, what happens is you burn more calories, and that 30% is a higher number because it becomes 300 at that point. So it's really not necessarily just because a percentage it comes from fat does not mean it's going to burn more fat. It just means out of what you burned, more of it was fat. If anybody has questions about that or anything, feel free to email me, joshchisholmfitness@gmail.com, and I'll try to go a little more in depth on that. Or if you want to post a comment or something, I can try to reach back out to you on there. If that didn't make sense. And then the moderate intensity steady state kind of goes along the same lines, where it burns more calories if the intensity goes a little bit higher. Now, should you only do high intensity interval training if you're a bodybuilder, and your goal is muscle retention, muscle building, fat loss? Okay, maybe you can get away with doing a couple of bouts a week of high intensity training and get stage lean, right? So, maybe you can, or maybe you're one of those people who doesn't need any cardio whatsoever, and you can get stage ready by just lifting weights. All right. People think that I'm anti-cardio. That is not at all true. Admittedly, I've posted several things that would lead people to believe that I'm extremely anti-cardio, but I'm not. What I am anti is unnecessary, excessive cardio. If you're a bodybuilder, will you do excessive cardio? Maybe. Maybe that's what it's going to take to get you ready for the stage. Especially if you're a natural athlete and you're not taking some of the fat loss drugs, fat loss agents. And if you're not a natural athlete and you take those, that's fine. It's part of the sport. I'm not here to judge that. But as a natural athlete, I know that you have to maybe do a little more than some people as far as programming and cardio and nutrition, to get into those stage lean levels, right? So, there are some people that could do a 16-week prep, and they would have to start cardio on day 1 of that prep, depending on their metabolism, their genetics, the amount of activity they come into a prep with, and other factors like that. There are people who could do an 8-week prep and do 0 cardio, and that's fine. So, and then there's anything in between, whether it's starting cardio at 6 weeks out, or whether some people that have to do different types of cardio, whether it's within 3 or 4 weeks of getting on stage, just to get that last little bit. Cardio is a great tool, all right, and that's how it should be used, as a tool, right? So it can be placed in different places depending on the athlete and depending on the status of the athlete or the client. If it's a general client, they might need some cardio. They might enjoy cardio. You can program that in, and that's fine. But what I do have a problem with is when you do excessive cardio out of its place, at the beginning of a prep when it's not necessary, and you cause a lot of muscle loss and metabolic damage and that type of thing. And I'll talk about metabolic damage in a different video at some point. So I believe cardio has its place, and that that's going to range, from a lot to a little to different types, depending on the client. Now, ideally, you throw in a couple of high intensity sessions, which will increase growth hormone, by the way, growth hormone production, which is great for a lot of reasons. That's a whole different video in itself as well, but it does help with fat loss, muscle gain, and it has other youth promoting health benefits as well. So high intensity training is more likely to produce that. So ideally, someone is lifting weights, resistance training, for muscle building purposes and to increase metabolic capacity, and then throwing in a couple of high intensity interval sessions, and then that should be enough, to get them there, ideally. But nobody's not everybody's going to be able to do it that way, and that's fine. So that's optimal, or that's best case scenario. But there are certainly situations where low intensity cardio is a necessity depending on the goal, right? So currently, where I'm at, I am doing some type of cardio every single day, right? So 2 times a week, I'm doing high intensity sprints. And the reason I'm only doing those 2 times a week is because it taxes your nervous system. So doing high intensity every single day, it could potentially increase cortisol. It could break your body down to a place where you're not burning, as much fat anymore, and burning some muscle, and you're not recovering. You could get injured. So that, so high intensity should also be, used carefully as well. So the days that I don't do high intensity, I have a low intensity bout. And so the other thing that I want to mention, fasted cardio. Do I do my low intensity cardio fasted? Absolutely not. There was a study, or there's a paper on the NSCA website, which is the National Strength and Conditioning Association. It's a journal by Brad Schoenfeld, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you or anything like that, but basically the way he concludes the review of the literature is with this. He says, in conclusion, the literature does not support the efficacy of training early in the morning on an empty stomach as a tactic to reduce body fat. At best, the net effect on fat loss associated with such an approach will be no better than training after meal consumption, and quite possibly it would produce inferior results. Moreover, given that training with depleted glycogen levels has been shown to increase proteolysis, which is the breakdown of protein, the strategy has potential detrimental effects for those concerned with muscle strength and hypertrophy. Brad Schoenfeld, huge name in the research of physique science and performance science as well. So, and there are tons of references at the bottom of that article. So basically, the point of what that is, or what that is. So what this is saying is that fasted cardio is at best the same as fed cardio for fat loss, and could actually be worse than fed cardio for fat loss, and that it is more likely to cause muscle loss via proteolysis, which is the breakdown of proteins, which could come from muscle tissue or just from proteins that you would potentially use to rebuild muscle and that type of thing. So basically, fed cardio is typically better. There are very few absolutes in fitness. So on the other side of that, if you have a client or an athlete that has a schedule or some type of situation where they have to do their cardio in the morning and they don't handle food well before exercise, then the answer to that is fasted cardio, and that's fine. If I run into that situation, I'll have no problem prescribing that for a client or athlete. So again, there are no absolutes, or there are very few absolutes in fitness. Ideally, I want to do what's going to follow what the research says is optimal for everybody, or for the majority of people, based on the studies and the research. But again, there are always outliers and certain situations that where certain things make sense, where some don't. So basically, to conclude all of this, if you want to lose body fat, you create a calorie deficit, whether that's by eating less, adding in more activity, depending on what type of activity, what your goals are, and that's how you lose fat. Ideally, you want to maintain as much muscle as possible for the sake of metabolism, and obviously, if you want to look muscular, you want to keep the muscle. So cardio should be used just as as a piece of that puzzle, and so that's where that is. I haven't really answered anything absolutely, because again, in fitness there are very few things that are absolute. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to comment below. I'll try to reach back out on there. If you want to email me, joshchisholmfitness@gmail.com. If you want coaching or anything like that, hit me up on that. Find me on Instagram, chisholmjt_physique. And if you have anything that you found any research that contradicts anything I've said, please show me that too, because I'm always wanting to learn, always wanting to improve my knowledge and my programming and my own training as well. The good thing about being proven wrong is that something we've been doing for so long a certain way, if that's not the best way to do it, and we find out there is a better way to do it, then that means that we're just going to get better results. So I have no problem being proven wrong. So if anybody ever, with anything I say, if anybody can show me data, or research that indicates that I'm incorrect, then please bring that to me so that I can adjust, what I do. So, always trying to learn. Hope you guys are too. Thanks for checking this out. I'm not here to bash anybody or anybody's ways of doing anything. I'm just trying to provide some information for people who want it. So, God bless. Good luck. Let me know if you need anything. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Dale.